Now 250,000. Now, but to get 275. High, but to get 275. 3. Now 300,000. Now 3 1/4. 325. High, but to get 3 1/4. But to get 325. Now half. Now but to get 300. And hello from Dallas, Texas, at Lincoln Center in far north Dallas, at the intersection of the LBJ Freeway and the Dallas North Tollway. We welcome you to the Mike McGavel Jones Show, and we have in the studio today Morgan Hopson. Morgan Hopson may be a name you've heard of before, but if you haven't, you're going to know a whole lot more. Good morning.
Good morning. Morgan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you. And so Morgan has recently been named and won the International Auctioneer Championship in New Orleans. So she's the 2019 International Auctioneer Champion Women's Division, which is a huge honor. With the National Auctioneers Association. It's the top honor there is. It's the highest peak. It's the mountaintop. It's the whole enchilada.
It is. And it's all the things.
It's everything that I just said and more.
Absolutely.
So we're excited for multiple reasons. Number one, we're happy for you. We're thrilled that you're from Texas and being from Bonham. And I'm going to ask you to just kind of give it the 40,000-foot overview of kind of, family and all that stuff. So we'll just start at the beginning.
Okay.
Okay. And so what year were you born?
I was born in 89.
1989.
So I'm 30. Turned 30 this year.
Wow. I almost can remember 30. Where were you born?
I was born in Sherman, Texas.
Sherman. Yep. And then you...
but my parents live in Bonham.
They do.
And have lived in Bonham for a long time.
For a long time.
And they run a dental practice there.
Really?
Yes.
Do they work together?
They do.
Wow.
They do.
That's cool. So tell me about growing up. Did you live in Sherman or did you?
No, we live in Bonham. So we have an old Victorian home in Bonham right off of the square. And the dental practice is downstairs and we lived upstairs.
Oh, that's cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah,
it's a very small town feel, and I think a lot of the patients really like it as well.
Yeah, that reminds me of when I was a kid because I remember my eye doctor. He operated his office downstairs, but he lived upstairs, and a lot of people did that back then. A lot of the practitioners.
It's fun growing up there because my parents were always around, always home. So.
Well, tell me about that. Tell me about your childhood.
Well, I had a great childhood, no complaints. I'm an only child, so it was nice, coming home from school, my parents being there from an early age. I think I played the violin, so I started playing the violin at.
You played the violin
at 2.5.
I had no idea.
No idea. No, I started playing at 2.5, and I was really interested in music. Neither one of my parents were very musically inclined in the fact that, they don't really play an instrument. My dad plays a little guitar, but nothing super serious. And I was, for whatever reason, really interested in playing the violin. So my mom and dad did a lot of research, learned about early childhood development, and found a school in Dallas called the Suzuki Institute of Dallas, and took me there to see if I would be interested. And so I started taking violin lessons. I did some observation first and started taking lessons around 3.
Wow.
And have played ever since, played through college. But my mom, drove me up and down the highway for years.
That's a trip too.
Concerts and, a lot of dedication there.
Yep. Well, and not everyone knows this, but you attended our auction school.
I did.
And what year was that?
2011, June of 2011.
So 2011. So it's taking you. The one thing I've noticed, a lot of our students, our graduates, the ones that have won the higher awards, whether it's the international or the state championship or whatever, it's usually in the 8th or 9th year, either of competing or at least being out of school. It's very interesting. I think Barrett Bray, as you well know, was last year's international men's champion, and I think he went through the school around 2008, 2009. So it's kind of interesting that way. So you're growing up, you start, like everyone, playing the violin at 3. That's amazing.
So I did that, played all through school, through high school and college, was able to get a full ride to the TCU School of Music and graduated with a music degree in violin. And then while I was there, went ahead and got my bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in marketing.
So you're not smart at all.
Not one bit, no.
So what year did you finish TCU?
I finished TCU in May of 2011. So
in 11.
Graduated then and came straight to auction school in June.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I remember when you came through because you did perform with your violin. Of course, you were playing like, I don't know. What did you play? Like
I think I played maybe Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Yeah,
or
something
Orange
like
Blossom
that.
Special.
Orange Blossom Special. I specifically recall that.
But we had a musically inclined class, though, if I remember.
You did.
Correctly.
You did. Yeah, there were some guitars involved.
There were.
The funny thing about that is, I was raised thinking fiddle.
Sure.
And you break out the violin, and you took it to a whole different level, you know. So
we always say one has strings and one has strangs. Right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
That's
the only
good.
difference there.
Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah. Well, when you were growing up, who were your inspirations in music as far as performers, or did you have anybody in particular?
Right. I mean, Joshua Bell was huge at the time. He was really young artist growing up. Vanessa May, she was doing different things. She played a lot of electric violin, which was neat because it brought a different, angle to classical. And so she did a lot of classical music, played them on the electric violin, and then put her own touch to them. So I thought that was really cool.
So when you're driving down the road, if you were to put something on to listen to, what do you listen to?
I listen to anything from country to classical and everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have one genre that I listen to primarily.
So if I said, hey, let's pick our top three, either songs or performers right now, like if I was to get on your phone,
sure.
What am I going to hear?
You're going to hear a little George Strait, probably. Going to hear a little Texas country.
Mm-hmm.
Probably going to hear a little Dvorak.
Wow.
Cello concerto.
Who doesn't know that?
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. So you come to auction school.
I did.
And what was your thinking? What were you thinking, smart girl?
Craig Buford, who owns our company, which is United Country Buford Resources Real Estate and Auction. Mm-hmm. I've known Craig my whole life, known him since I was a baby, and he's been a huge part of my life.
He's been your mentor.
Influence and a great mentor for me growing up. And when I graduated, I was doing actually a marketing contest in Oklahoma City. And we'd put this huge marketing campaign together for JCPenney, and we were presenting with schools all over the nation to JCPenney. And Craig works out of Oklahoma City, and so I'd met with him, and he also we manage the Community Bankers Association of Oklahoma. And so I'd met with him just for lunch, and he said, what are your plans after you graduate? And I said, great question. Was still kind of thinking and going to the music industry, maybe moving to Nashville and doing some studio work out there, or working for a production company. And he said, well, why don't you come do marketing for me for a while and see if you like it? And I said, that sounds great. Sounds like a lot of fun. And we, talked a little bit, and I knew he had a real estate auction company, and that was the side of the company I'd be working on primarily. And so I decided, well, I'm going to go to auction school. I don't really know anything about the auction business. I'd been to a few livestock sales growing up, but hadn't really been immersed in the business at all. And so I decided I was going to come to Texas Auction Academy, which is now America's Auction Academy, and learn more about the business side of things, and got there and was just fully intrigued with the auction business.
And then you graduated.
Then I graduated.
Okay. And then you go back and you start working with Craig.
That's right. I got my auctioneer's license, and then I ended up getting my real estate license in Texas and in Oklahoma, and start working for Craig, doing marketing for him, still pushing out full campaigns for our unique properties and luxury properties that we sell at auction. We sell a lot of farm and ranch land and hunting properties at auction as well. So doing a lot of campaigns, and just kind of flourished from there, I guess.
So when you got back and started working with Craig, of course he works in Texas, he works in Oklahoma, and pretty much wherever.
We work, a little bit all over the country.
Yeah. And nowadays, and I came to this conclusion a long time ago, borders don't really matter much. Right. Only the taxing entities within the jurisdiction. Because, when I was a kid, we lived in Texas, and Oklahoma was like over there.
Right. I mean, Bonham's 12 miles from the Red River.
Well, and I grew up in Gainesville. It was 8 miles. Yep. But there was a mindset that there was like this big difference. Yeah. There really isn't any difference much.
Kind of blend.
It kind of runs together. Yeah. And so, but now with the internet And with all the technology we have, literally you can sell anything anywhere. And that's not just in the United States. That's international. That's in South America and the islands. And, I'm finding more opportunities every day.
Right.
And, of course, you're the right age because you're young and you're just getting started, But, you're lucky that you have Craig as a mentor. So when did you have your and one thing I didn't, and I'm going to talk about Texas, too, because that's near and dear to my heart. So in regard to the real estate business, what is your favorite part of it now? Because you've been there long enough now. You're doing a little bit of everything, I assume, right?
We are.
You're not just doing marketing now.
No,
you're doing pretty much everything.
Doing a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy, we sell, like I said, our kind of bread and butter is farm and ranch land. And I love seeing the different properties across the nation, the different places we get to go. Everything about them is unique. And I think that's something really cool and that's intriguing about the auction business is that every day is a new day for us. We never know what to expect. We're going to get a different property every day. We're going to have a different campaign going pretty much every day. And so it's always something new. So it keeps us on our toes.
What percentage of your United Country office with Craig Buford is auction versus traditional listings?
I'd say 95% at auction.
Wow, that's impressive. We see, until just the last 10 years, I never listed a piece of real estate. I never listed it. I did one piece like in 1982 or 83, and it convinced me that really I was not really, I was geared for a quicker, faster pace.
Right.
And so tell me what you love about the auction part of it.
I think what's cool about the auction, and for those of you who don't know, we always say there's three things. It's fast, fun, and transparent. But it's so true because in an auction setting, especially with a piece of real estate, in a traditional market, it could sit there for 6 months, a year and a half, and you never know when it's going to sell. And you may have a neighbor who's interested, but they're not really motivated. They're going to sit there and watch and kind of see what happens. Well, in the auction method, we're usually 60 to 90 days from listing to sale date. We have 30 days to kind of prepare marketing, 30 days to actually market the property, and then 30 days to close. So that's a huge benefit. You know when it's going to sell, you set a date, and it kind of encourages people to get on their feet and get the ball rolling. Another thing that's really cool is that you didn't leave any money on the table. Again, in a traditional market, you're kind of bartering with your buyer until you guys are mutually agreeable on a price. But with the auction, sky's the limit. No one knows your reserve price if you have one. There are two different ways of selling absolute or reserve, but you're able to have a reserve. So only you and the auctioneer is going to know that reserve price, and then sky's the limit. So if you have two people there that really want a particular property, there's no telling.
Sure. Well, and I love the auction method. It is, for me, it's the way to go. And not every seller is geared for an auction, and I would say,
and not every property should be sold at auction.
Yeah. Well, we always had the philosophy that probably 9 out of 10 properties that I looked at were not a good fit for us. It was either not a good fit for us or it wasn't a good fit for them. And of course, you're dealing with debt. And personal issues with people, and it's a different mindset. Now I will say this: Oklahoma is a great auction state.
Absolutely.
And not that Texas isn't, but I just have noticed forever, especially north of Oklahoma City, that is just like that is. I used to call it. I used to call Enid, Oklahoma, auction utopia, because they have an auction going on pretty much every day. Right. It's amazing.
And I think a lot of times misconstrued, a lot of times with real estate auctions, that it is with debt or foreclosure, which at least with our properties, that's not the case a lot of the times. It's a ranch that someone's bought, and they're moving to another state, and they purchased a ranch there, and they're wanting to liquidate, their property in whatever state that may be. Or, they're kind of retiring, they're wanting to size down a little bit, and so we're able to sell that for them. So I think for people to know, too, that it's often thought of as foreclosure, real estate auctions, but a lot of times that's not the case at all.
Most of the things that foreclosure is very rare for me.
Absolutely.
I do very few, if any, unless it's maybe a trustee or someone has contacted us, because I don't necessarily look for that type of work. We used to do a lot of it in the personal property, but we certainly didn't do it in the real estate. And I find I'd much rather work for a client that is excited about having an auction,
Absolutely.
that understands the process, and they're just ready to go.
Definitely.
Because if they're ready, the other thing is with a reserve auction, as you well know, what the reserve is today versus what the reserve is tomorrow could be two different things. And that's why I always encourage people. And I'll tell you an example that happened north of here, between here and Sherman, about 15 years ago. And I had a client, and he had been trying to sell that property for over 10 years, and he had just worn the market out.
Right.
It was shop worn. And he was very difficult. He was challenging, and people didn't think he was serious about selling it. His price was really high, and every time somebody would come up, he would not discuss that it was negotiable. He would just say, "This is what I want for it, and this is what I'm going to get for it, and I'm not going to sell it until I get that price." Well, he went through, tough times and good times, but the interesting thing was, and every major auction company in the United States looked at this, tried to get him to have an auction, and all of our friends for the National Auctioneer Association that run large companies, and they all walked away frustrated. And I met with him, and another United Country office, actually, John Payne down in Arizona. He had gone through our school, and then he referred the deal to me. I didn't even know about it. But anyway, got ready to sign a contract. We got him on a contract, and I said, how negotiable are you on the price? He said, I want to sell it. He said, I'm going to move. And I started thinking, well, I wish he hadn't have been so hard-headed about his price over the years. Of course, I probably wouldn't have gotten it because he'd have sold it. Well, now, what he really needed was an offer. That's all we needed. Absolutely. And we went to auction. It probably could have brought more money, but a lot of the players, the people that thought that he was not going to sell no matter what, didn't show up. And that hurt him. But it also convinced me that you got to get the word out that the seller is negotiable. This is going to happen. Right. So that was a real life lesson, So what are the biggest challenges that you have in selling real estate at auction, as far as where you are, or just in general? What do you see as the biggest challenges?
I think always it's a challenge to make sure, just like you're saying, the right people know about the property. And we're doing full marketing campaigns, full color brochures. We're advertising nationally and regionally to try to bring in buyers to the property. And so I think with every auction, not necessarily a challenge, but it's a fun challenge, I guess, if it's a challenge, trying to figure out which markets to, push the property to. The world is so big, and we have so much access now through the internet that trying to figure out which venues and which mediums are the right ones to use.
Well, and sometimes I think because we have all of this exposure, there's so much exposure, we almost have exposure overload. And so just like the emails I get thousands of emails, just like you do. And it's just like delete, 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 delete. I have to, I don't read all the emails. I look for the two lines. And if it's not personal,
grab you.
Well, yeah, if it's not something that I'd be interested in, but I just find it interesting that we are almost in an overload situation.
I think one thing we've started doing is we started sending out letters again to surrounding landowners, to potential people that we've had on our list that have purchased from us before, because they're getting so much email, they're getting overloaded on the internet, that personal letter now is becoming a little more rare.
It's funny, Trent in our office, and you've met Trent, he's been with me now about 3 or 4 months, and he's in research and development, finding buyers and sellers. And one of the things that we literally we're doing on Friday, and we'll finish today, is we're mailing about 500 letters out today. Absolutely. Direct letters, talking about what we do and how we do it and all that. So it's funny. I'm a big believer that there is no single answer to marketing anymore. You have to. People go, well, don't you target market? Well, yes, we do target market, but we also have to do some shotgun approach to it, and we have to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
And it's fluid. It's ever changing. So.
Well, and you never know. You just never know. Sometimes it's just going to come off of a sign, which is, you think
sure.
that, especially the locals, look, the coffee shop is probably the best advertising you can get. You go almost any small town in Oklahoma or Texas, there's one or two places where they all meet. They meet in the morning, and then they catch up in the afternoon. And you want to get the word out, just go tell all the old men.
Yep. And like I was saying earlier, that's what sometimes just that auction sign will push those people locally who have been waiting on that property to sell or knew it was for sale but hadn't really had the motivation. That sometimes will do it.
Sure, well. Sure. So you told me about your parents. Anything you would tell me about your grandparents, maybe your lineage and your family past or anything?
Sure. My grandfather on my mom's side is first generation American. He is Chinese. And so if you look at me, you probably wouldn't think that at all, but I'm a quarter Chinese.
Wow.
And first generation American, he's actually in the Red Museum, downtown Dallas.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
So that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's very cool. Now, see, that's something I did not know.
Really? Okay.
At all. So you go to auction school, and we teach and we preach about association membership. And everybody knows how I am about that,
Yes.
And that goes back to my friend in Lawson, Missouri, Gary Ryther, was one of my instructors in auction school. And the last day, he had a lot of influence over me, as well as Chuck Cumberland and a couple of others. But specifically, I remember Gary telling all of us, but I remember him telling me specifically, when you go back, if you want to err on the side of success, join the National Auctioneer Association and join your state association. So when did you join your associations?
I joined at your school.
Shocking.
Shocking. I joined actually the National Association and the Texas Association that day. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a family, like I said, my parents been in the dental world for a long time, and they were always really involved in our state association or national association. So the TDA is the Texas Dental Association, ADA, American Dental Association, and have always been really involved in there. So I grew up in an association world. I've watched, my dad go through the boards of his, region and his 4th District Association, and then as well as the state level. Mm-hmm. And so that's something I knew was important. I knew it was important to them, and, he's gotten his fellowship and those types of things. So I always knew that was important. And then to hear you reiterate that during auction school, I went ahead and joined the Texas Association, the National Association. It's been huge for me, not mm-hmm. coming from an auction family and not having a huge group of, auction influence around me. Craig's been great, but I'm first generation, mm-hmm. so a lot of auctioneers come from auction families. Mm-hmm. Now, there are a great handful of first generation auctioneers as well, but that's just kind of unique, I think, in the fact that I didn't grow up in a family of auctioneers. So joining that state association and that national association has really given me that family and camaraderie. Mm-hmm. And built a lot of relationships that mm-hmm. way.
So let's talk about the national first. You have a lot of friends because of the National Auctioneer Association. Yeah. When did you, what other classes have you taken with the NAA?
Sure. So CAI was huge for me, Certified mm-hmm. Auctioneers Institute. I've also gone through BAS and ARE mm-hmm. and AMM as well. But CAI is a designation that totally changed my view of the auction industry, totally changed my view of the association. And I'll never forget, Craig had really encouraged me to go to CAI. And so I finally ended up going, and I went. And what was so interesting, I remember that night I came out of the big hall there that we all stay in, that mm-hmm. our classes are in. And I was walking out, and I think it was the first night, and I was actually on my way to Nick's. So if you've been to CAI, that's where a lot of the fellowship takes place. Yep. And wasn't really sure where I was going. I just knew that's where I was supposed to be. Yep. And so I walk out looking to network and meet people, and Scott King was standing outside, mm-hmm. and he was teaching. And I didn't know Scott, didn't know of their family. Like I said, first generation auctioneer, new to the business, mm-hmm. and so I walk outside, and he says, "Hey, where are you going?" I said, "Well, headed to Nick's, but not really sure where I'm going." And he was with a group of people, and he was standing there, Scott fashion in his tie-dye shirt, and mm-hmm. I just vividly remember that in my head. And he said, "Hey, where are you going?" I said, "Well, I'm headed to Nick's." And he said, "Well, come with us." And he said, "Are you by yourself?" And I said, "Yes, I am." I said, "I'm a first generation auctioneer, and I don't really know anyone here. This is my first year at CAI." Mm-hmm. And for those of you who don't know, CAI is a 3-year designation program. It's kind of the masters of the auction business. And we go for a week once a year, and then we have projects to do throughout the year. So it's a 3-year program to complete. So this is my first year, but Scott really took me under his wing that day, and he introduced me to a ton of people that night, and kept following up, making sure I was okay, doing okay, had everything I needed, and really just took me under his wing and did, throughout his time. So that was really impactful for me, and I don't know if I ever really had the chance to tell him what a big moment that was for me, but through CAI I was able to form so many relationships and meet so many people, and that's a tight-knit group of folks there.
Well, and the thing I love about CAI, and amazingly to me, it's been 26 years since I finished CAI, so it's changed quite a bit. It's changed a lot. Back in the earlier days, there was a big emphasis of professors at Indiana University, where we do the class. And then over time, they've injected more of the professionals that you're actually going to compete with, which is very interesting. There's not very many, you're not going to get a lot of that in your state or locally, because you're competing head to head. But it's very interesting that you can actually be in a classroom with someone on a national level that already has had the great success, and they're not intimidated to talk about how they did it or how to do it.
Right. And I will say I met Corky Hurd, who's with Hurd Auction and Real Estate, another United Country office out of Clinton, Oklahoma. Yep. And Corky and I were in the same class.
And happy birthday to Corky.
And happy birthday to Corky. That's right.
Yeah.
But we were in the same class, and so we've kind of built a friendship and relationship, and now I'm good friends. His daughter and I are about the same age, and we've gotten really close. And our office and their office have been able to work together a little bit. And Corky was really big, too. He was doing a lot of sales and would let me get on the mic and sell and gain some experience there, and so that was really appreciate him for letting me do that and get some experience under my belt.
That's cool. That's very good. I didn't know that story either. So you go through CAI and you've taken some of these designation classes, which for people that don't know, we have a designation academy. So we'll do a little promoting for the National Auctioneer Association and the education group. We
have a benefit auction summit coming up in a couple weeks in August in Palm Springs.
Oh, that's a terrible place to be.
It's going to be a little warm maybe, but it'll be great class. They'll be in the hotel, so they'll have plenty of AC there, I'm sure. And then our designation academy offers the benefit auction.
And that's basically the first week of December.
And
annually.
And around NFR time, so that's always a fun time
everybody,
to be in Vegas.
Everybody loves that, but it is a supercharged week.
Absolutely.
So not only are you in Las Vegas, which, just the electricity alone, is probably in your body, but then you've got the National Finals Rodeo going on, and so that's a really neat place to be.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So I highly recommend that.
I would as well.
I know you will. So you decide you're going to compete. So how did that happen? When did that start?
It started 5 years ago.
Okay.
I made the decision to compete in the Texas State Championship, which occurs during our Texas Auctioneers Association convention, and it was in Frisco, Texas.
Yeah.
So I didn't have very far to travel, but made the decision. I'd been to a convention a couple years before, but had never competed.
Yep.
And decided I'd watched it a couple years and decided it's time for me to do that. I think that's something I'd really like to do and set my goals for. And so ended up competing. Like I'd never been through a contest before, and so my goal was just to make it to the finals. Now in Texas, they do it kind of similar to the IAC. You compete in a prelim round, then you compete in a semifinal round, which is an interview process. So you're asked industry-related questions and questions about the association, and then they narrow it down even further, and you go to the finals round. And so my first year I competed and ended up making the finals that evening, which was exciting. And I believe I placed third that first year.
Yeah.
And then had a year, I believe the next year maybe placed third again. Had another year where I didn't make the top three, but still made the finals in the top five. And then last year, Toya McLeod beat me out.
Yep.
And he's an auto auctioneer and a great guy, and I got second. And then this year I was able in June to take it home finally. So I remember my first year though, Jason Miller and Wendy Lambert, who's from Dallas.
Who also won the IAC.
Right. They had won the IAC that year. That first year I competed in Frisco, they had just won the IAC.
Oh, okay.
And so
in Louisville.
In Louisville. And they had both really encouraged me to get and start competing in the IAC. And so they said, you need to register. And this time, I believe it was in May. And our convention that next year was going to be in Dallas.
Oh, wow.
And
in
so,
2015.
In 2015, that's correct. And so I said, okay, well, what do I need to do? And they said, you need to register. You need to get in this contest. And so I did. So that was my first year as well, competing in the IAC. And I was one shy of making the finals.
So 2015, for people that don't remember, was probably the hottest week in Texas.
Extremely hot.
Yeah, we were actually supposed to go to Minneapolis. That was where we were. That's where we were supposed to go. And then there was something with the hotel. There was a problem up there, and I had already promoted the idea before to have people come to Texas because it had been in Houston before, and so it'd been in Texas once or twice.
And for those of you listening that don't know, our national convention is almost always in July.
Yes,
so
yes,
one of the hottest times of the year in Dallas.
It's never spring or fall, and so we have it's always hot wherever we are, pretty much. But anyway, and that event actually took place about 2 exits from here in Addison, Texas, and which is where I reside, and I pass it every day. You know, I see that building, and I think about what was so tough at the time is it was the Intercontinental at that time. It's since changed to Renaissance, and they've done a total remodel. I wish they'd have done the remodel in 2014 because we had air. The heat was so intense, and the air conditioning just couldn't pull the load. Couldn't keep up, and people were whining, and and you know they were like,
especially if you're not from here,
we're never coming to Texas
intense.
again.
Absolutely.
And I'm well, it's really funny if you think about it. You know, it's like 10,000 degrees here, and then we go to New Orleans this year, and what do we get? Baby hurricane.
Exactly.
You know, 8 inches of rain in 2 hours.
But that convention was really fun though. We had a sleep at the wheel come.
Yes.
And you were able to let me play the national anthem prior to them coming on stage, and so got to spend a little time with Ray Benson, which was really,
awesome.
Really neat.
Yeah, I was excited. United Country actually underwrote the entertainment, and so we wrote the check for Ray Benson, and but it was a great time. It was a fun convention.
Really
we enjoyed that. Yeah.
So I got a little taste of the IAC there, and competed every year since.
Yep. Well, and you've actually performed the national anthem several times.
I have. Through
the National Auctioneer Association. So, okay, so in June, you won the Texas State Championship.
I did.
And then it's very rare for a person to win the state championship and then turn right around and win the international. I mean, that's quite a feat. I was a witness to that. The year that I was in my very first IAC was in, I think it was in Nebraska, Omaha was my first contest. And the previous month, Spanky Assiter had won the state and then won the IAC. And then you've done the same thing. I think the other thing is just the camaraderie that you see within the ranks of the IAC. So tell me, you know, I know you had a tough situation this year in New Orleans in that a lot of us had to leave. A lot of us left by the advice of others because of the weather. The weather just couldn't have been any worse unless it had been Katrina-ish. And it wasn't terrible, but it was all over the place. It was like half of the state of Louisiana was getting pummeled by rain. And so at the advice of a lot, even the locals, I mean, our COO with United Real Estate, whose office is next to mine here in Dallas, he still resides in Metairie, north of New Orleans. And he sent me a personal note, and he said, "Mike, don't take any chances. You need to get out." Absolutely. And so I heeded, and I did, and I went to Atlanta, and where it was hot. In the meantime, you guys are down there having the contest. And of course, I'm having withdrawal because I have not missed a contest. I have not missed a contest since 1992. And I've judged the contest 2 or 3 times, so I was looking forward to it. And I had already told everyone that I knew that you, in my opinion, you were the odds-on favorite to win the women's division. That. Well, it's just kind of common sense. It wasn't rocket science, you know. It wasn't like playing the fiddle. But anyway, yeah, I kind of felt that you were the odds on. The men's competition, you've got a lot of the usual suspects. There's always that 5 to 10 that it could be, and of course the scoring is so tight on the men and the women. It's just, it's fractions, and one question can derail you.
One word, even.
One word, yeah, one word.
That's how tight these contests
So
are.
tell me about how you view the contest now that you've won it, because there's a lot of people that are going to watch this that are members of the National, a lot of people who compete in these contests. Tell me what your ingredients are that you see makes a great champion, gives you the right mix. Is it practice? Is it just like the questions? You have to understand the industry. You have to understand the National Auctioneer Association. You have to know what our missions and visions are. So just kind of spill your thoughts on the contest.
I think for those of you listening that don't know kind of what the IAC entails, we go through a round where we sell 2 items in the preliminaries, and it's a live auction. So we're selling to people in the crowd. I think a lot of people think we're up there bid calling, but to know that we're actually having a live auction there, I think is important. We're judged on our stage presence, judged on our command, on our accuracy of our numbers. There are a lot of different factors that go into that preliminary round, and we're solely judged on our bid calling and our stage presence. And then if we're privileged to make the finals, we go through a round where we answer 3 industry-related and association questions, and that for the women comes down to 7 people, and for the men, I believe 15 people. And then we go through another round of finals bid calling where we sell another 2 items. And in the interview questions, we're actually sequestered into a room. And when I mean sequestered, we're like actually even escorted to go to the bathroom, escorted down the hall. We're all put in a room together for a while, which that's where a lot of the relationships are made. We're sitting in a room together,
sure,
building relationships, and I've made a lot of friendships in that room. But I think, kind of what makes a champion, I think what the NAA is looking for is someone to be a great ambassador for our association. So yes, you have to have a great bid call to get to the finals round, but I think also during that interview portion, you have the ability to speak on our association, what we're doing, what the future looks like for our industry, and to really promote the auction industry to those who aren't as familiar with it, and educate those around us.
Yeah, a couple of other thoughts I had wanted to cover too. The camaraderie is so strong. You have a core group. You just do. You just migrate to certain people. Of course, when you're as old as I am, that's easy. You just, you know everybody. You feel like you know everybody. And it's just a real honor to be a part of it. It's one of those things after you won the IAC, you're just going, did I really just win the IAC? Because what it does, it changes your life. And it does. Now you're on the cover of the magazine. Everybody knows who you are, and you're influencing all of the young auctioneers that are coming up. You're young, but you're also influencing the junior folks. We have the IJAC, and that, as you well know, that's the breeding ground for the next generation of champions.
Absolutely.
And
I think that's a really cool thing. That if we could talk about that just for a second, the IJAC. Tice Ferigi won this year. He's 18, comes from an auction family. He's a great auctioneer. I think he's going to be a wonderful mentor for all of the kids coming up. But the NAA just recently launched a program called Next Gen, and it's for kids between the ages of 10 and 18 to become familiar with the auction industry. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to be sent, I believe, a couple newsletters throughout the year. I believe it's $25 to become a Next Gen member. And to really expose some of those kids to the auction industry at an early age, I think is really, really cool. And, I have the opportunity to speak at my junior high, LH Rather, hopefully this December, and speak to those kids about the auction industry. And I just think, wow, that's so cool. I didn't realize the broad spectrum of the auction industry. Like I mentioned, I think I'd been to a few livestock sales, but to know that you can be in fundraising, that you could be in real estate, that there are so many different communities of practice and ways to be involved in the auction business without even being a bid caller if that's not something you're interested in. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to go talk to those kids and let them know that this industry is something that they could be a part of, I think that's really special. Yeah.
The interesting thing about the auction industry is it really is an unknown entity to the mass majority of the people in the world. because the first thing, as you well know, they always ask you, they say, oh, do you sell cattle or do you sell cars? And I go, well, I have.
Do you do that fast talking?
Yeah, yeah, always, And the other thing that I was talking to someone the other day, because I'm always talking about the auction industry, and one of the things that we talked about was they said, if you're in a contest, what do they grade you on? How do they possibly grade you? I mean, and what people don't realize is there's a whole grid. There's a whole list of things, and of course it's technology based now, and we actually do the judging on a screen instead of paper ballot or whatever you want to say. So it's a different time. Real quick, I know that you're going to be going to Memphis. Tell us about that.
I am. We have the opportunity to go to St. Jude and do a fun auction for kids and their siblings. Trey Morris and I, who's from Murray, Kentucky, he's my co-champion. And we're going to have the opportunity to go in November. I believe November 13th and 14th we'll be in Memphis at St. Jude. We'll get to tour the campus, talk to ALSAC a little bit about their fundraising efforts, and have the ability to go kind of bring some joy into those kids' lives and let them experience the auction business. And we'll be able to go, I believe, buy toys for the kids and sell them in a fun auction. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be one of our biggest highlights of the year, so getting to go there. You're
actually going, it'll be the 20th anniversary of when I went. So I went in '99, and I've told this story many times. I have a daughter that's 26 years old now and a 5-year-old grandson. However, when I went to St. Jude specifically, it changed my life to the point where I dedicated, from then on, to raising money for St. Jude. And we also raise money for Scottish Rite here in Dallas because that's our Texas designated auctioneer charity. But St. Jude was a game changer, and what'll be fun for you, of course, you get to work with the kids. That's fun. There'll be a lot of press. They cover it quite well. And then the other thing is you'll get to see our new conference room, which
that'll be exciting.
Yeah, and it was dedicated this past year when I was there. But they opened up the new conference room where the doctors come from all over the world, and they meet, and it's a research room, and they meet and talk and compare statistics, and they do just a lot of things that we don't even know what they do, but we do know that this is the National Auctioneers Association has a designated conference room, which is right in the Hall of Flags. It's an awesome, and you'll see that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the National Association has donated over $5.5 million since the inception of this program, which is impactful. I had the opportunity to go to St. Jude February of 2018, and like you said, just an incredibly life-changing experience.
Well, and a shout out to our students too, our graduates of America's Auction Academy.
Absolutely.
For the last 20 years. We will be raising close to $500,000 just from our student auctions, because every class we have an event and we raise money for 4 or 5 different groups, including the National Auctioneers Foundation and the Auxiliary, and we have some Texas charities involved. Jim Sample is part of that honorarium, and so I think what is great about it is you going there and Trey going there. It will just instill in you more the giving nature, and that's what our champions do. They give back.
And you mentioned Scottish Rite too. We have the opportunity to go there in December and do a fun auction as well. So I'm excited about that. I think December 8th may be our date to be at Scottish Rite there. So
is that a Monday?
It's a Monday, I believe.
Yeah, we've been going there for a long time, and we actually you will be doing the auction with the kids.
Yes.
Santa Claus may show up. It's also the same Monday that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be there, and so it's kind of one of those supercharged days at Scottish Rite here in Dallas. In fact, 10 minutes down the street, and that'll be fun. Well, any other final thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
No, I'm excited for this year. I'm excited to represent our auction industry around the world and be able to be an ambassador for the National Association and our Texas State Association. It's just going to be a fun-filled year, I think, and hopefully I'm able to leave an impression and leave a legacy for those to follow me and represent our industry well throughout this year and years to come.
Well, I know you're a proud Horned Frog.
I am. Go Frogs.
From TCU. And so, on behalf of all of the instructors at our auction school, and as a past president of the National Auctioneer Association, I could not be prouder of you or for you, because I know it's just it's something super special. You'll always be a champion, and you'll have a great year. And we just want you to enjoy the time. I think we have your trophy there.
And thank you for your support of me throughout the years. You've
Sure.
been always encouraging and supportive, and that makes a huge difference.
Well, you know what?
That.
You've been worthy. Let me see the belt buckle here. Let's see. You can show it to them?
Yeah, got a little belt buckle here.
Yeah, a little belt buckle. That's a Texas-sized belt
That's
buckle.
right.
Yeah, and then your trophy
our
this is Texas.
Texas trophy here.
Yeah, sweet. Well, and we're so proud of you, and we'll just do a quick shout out to all our friends with the National Auctioneer Association and the Texas Auctioneers Association, and the people that have supported you along the way, because there's a lot of there's people out there that are fans that are pulling for people, and
really quick, I know we're trying to wrap up here, but there are so many people in the auction industry that have poured into me over the years, especially being a first generation auctioneer, that have really taken me under their wing, and I can't thank them enough, and I'll never have enough time to thank them enough for their support. Because
just hang out in the hallways.
It's a team effort,
Sure.
and I didn't get here alone by any means.
Well, none of us did. We all have great mentors, and you can give a shout out to your Oklahoma City crew.
Yep, that's right. Our team at Buford Resources, Real Estate and Auction, I appreciate them, and the Oklahoma State Association has been extremely supportive as well.
Very good, very good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Morgan Hopson. She's the 2019 International Auctioneer Champion Women's Division, and Texas State Champion for 2019. And we're so happy for her, and hope you enjoyed the show today and get to know a little bit more about the auction industry. And she's a leader. And so on behalf of Morgan and myself and the Mike McGavel Jones Show, we appreciate you being with us, and be with us next week. We got another new show coming out. So God bless. Take care, and we bid you adieu from Dallas.